The man, Mr. Scotty Moore.
Hey,
Scotty,
George.
how you doing, my man?
Doing fine.
Scotty, we're here to talk about this famous guitar on your left there, the Gibson, and it's an ES-295, is that right, Scotty?
Right, that's correct.
But you had another guitar before this when you got out of the Navy or something like that. Well, you tell the story, Scotty.
Well, when I got out of the Navy, well, I'll just go back just a little bit. In the Navy, we'd sit around after hours and be playing.
On the ship?
On the ship, and we're using Japanese guitars. All right, the Japanese had been copying Fenders.
Okay.
Which were the thin line models.
Right.
And sitting down, it didn't matter to me, you know, what I had. But when I got out of the Navy, that's the first thing I did was I bought a Fender, an Esquire, I think, and played it for a little while. And one day I was walking down the street
in Memphis.
In Memphis, and in front of OK Houck Piano Company.
On Union Avenue, as I recall.
On Union Avenue, and they had just put this guitar in the showroom out front.
Window. Was it in the window or in the showroom?
In the window.
Uh-huh.
And it's brand new. It was a bright color and everything. And I said, I don't know who it belongs to, what brand it is, or anything. I got to have it. And I went in and made a deal with right then.
You traded in the Fender,
I traded the Fender
for the Gibson.
Right.
Was Gibson as big then, Scotty, as it became?
No.
No.
It was on its. No, it wasn't near as big then as it was now. Gosh, it's got so many different brands and such that they.
Is that called an ES-295?
ES-295.
Now you traded, but you actually, it says here you actually traded this guitar back to OK Houck in 1955, but then 2 years later, you own the Gibson ES-295. That was you're talking about the Fender then, that we traded back. I'm just looking at some notes here.
They had a Fender first.
Yeah.
Which I traded to OK Houck for the ES-295, which actually is a large copy of the Les Paul guitar. If you can envision a Les Paul, the smaller body and everything.
Yeah.
And it had the same colors.
Les played a Gibson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they came out with this one, which is a bigger copy. All right, then about 2 years later, I changed. I used the ES-295 on all of the Sun recordings.
All 5 of them?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I traded the ES-295 to OK Houck for an L5, Gibson L5 guitar. I know all these numbers get mixed up.
Yeah, right. Now, but so that was in what, 1954-ish or something like that, maybe?
The last thing we did on Sun was what?
Let me see. You had That's All Right, Mama, I'm Left, You're Right, a Milk Cow Blues Boogie, Good Rockin' Tonight, and one more.
Well, Mystery Train and
Mystery Train, yeah. Those were the 5 A sides, weren't they?
Right.
Okay, so. But the important thing here, Scotty, is that this guitar that we're looking at today, which you got at OK Houck on a trade-in deal, actually was the guitar that you used on That's All Right, Little Mama.
Right.
That is the most important thing, because that is considered, Scotty, as the mother lode of rock and roll, if you will. The rock and roll, that's where it was born, with That's All Right, Little Mama. Of course, we claim that in Memphis. I don't know what Cleveland, Ohio claims, but we claim that in Memphis, Tennessee, that rock and roll was born in Memphis, Tennessee by you playing that Gibson guitar at Sun Records 706 Union on That's All Right, Little Mama.
That's correct.
At least we got that right.
And I also might point out that, I don't know if the world knows it, I've said it many times, that this was an audition. It was not a record session.
Yeah, now, as I recall, Scotty, Elvis came to your house on like July the 4th.
The day before.
Which was a Sunday.
Right.
And he had on the pink and black, and Bobby said she didn't know about this guy, and Bobby being your lady at the time.
He's out the back door.
Yeah, and then the next day, you correct me if I'm wrong now, but Scotty, you called Sam Phillips, or
called him that afternoon.
And you said, I think maybe this kid's got something.
Well, I told him, I said that what impressed me with Elvis at the time was that he, well, back up a little bit. Bill Black lived just a few doors up the street because we'd been playing together in the same band beforehand. In fact, I was keeping his upright bass.
That was the Starlight Wranglers.
Starlight Wranglers. I was keeping his bass at my house. And Bill came down and listened, sat in for a little while, just sit there and listen for.
Yeah.
And myself, Elvis, or Bill, who could think of some song, we'd mention it, and he seemed like he knew every song in the world.
Yeah.
He might not know all the chords in the song, but he'd play along, quit playing, keep singing, never miss a lick, voice-wise. Come back in and still play it just like he'd been there all day, had a full band.
That's amazing, wasn't it?
It was. And that was one thing that impressed me that day.
And you were on that Sunday afternoon, you were using the ES-295, the Gibson.
Right.
And then you called Sam that evening or that afternoon.
That afternoon after Elvis left and discussed about it. See, I didn't know at this time that Sam had actually heard him singing before.
He'd heard the demo that he
had done with
2
Marilyn.
sides for $4 or something. Yeah.
Right. But I told him, I said, the guy's got a great, fantastic rhythm and fantastic timing. And Sam said, well, said I'll call him and see if he can come in tomorrow night, and we'll do some more things and see what we think there.
But it was all with the ES-295.
All with the ES-295.
Now, as you've told me once before, you guys go in and Sam has got this ballad and Elvis gives it a shot, but it's not happening.
Right.
And then you guys take a break in the action and start goofing around. And Elvis had heard That's All Right, Little Mama on a rhythm and blues station out of Memphis. And he starts singing it. You didn't know the song. Bill didn't know the song, so y'all start ad-libbing.
It's
just
all
goofing
ad-lib.
around. And Sam sticks his head out of the control room door and says, what are you doing? We said, well, we're just messing around till you get ready. Let's try something else. And he said, well, that messing around sounds pretty good.
The rhythm is what really impressed him.
The rhythm of the song.
I think more than the actual song, because we didn't know that, and I'm sure Elvis didn't know it either, that Sam had actually published that song before.
I didn't know that either.
Oh yeah, he had published it when he had released it.
On Big Boy Arthur Crudup.
Right.
Well, Scotty, why did Elvis leave a verse out? You remember when you guys went with Paul McCartney, and redid that song in New York, you and DJ, it came up that Elvis had left a verse out of that song.
I didn't know it. See, I didn't know it at that point myself.
Yeah.
And
was it a risque verse? Elvis didn't remember the verse.
He must not have remembered it. It's the only thing I can sing.
But anyway,
or maybe he wouldn't sing it if it was a little risque. Thought maybe his mother might come down on him. That would make sense.
And Sam didn't say anything about it.
Say a word.
And Sam, Scotty, as I recall, Sam always said, it's the feeling. You don't have to hit a perfect note every time. You don't have to hit a perfect lick every time. It's the feeling that he captured on those records.
That was the best training I think that I ever heard from Sam.
Would you expound on that? What's that, Scotty?
That you don't have to, as long as the feeling is in the overall song is there from all the musicians and the singer. If somebody made a little goof, didn't matter. And if you listen to Elvis's records, especially on Sun and even a few of the early RCA records, we've kept that ideal in all our heads all the time.
And Scotty, as I recall, I think maybe you or Elvis told me that on one of those records, you said, Elvis, I want to do it again. I think I messed up. And Elvis's words, not verbatim but close, was, Scotty, we ain't selling guitars here, we're selling a sound.
That's right.
And that was one of the secrets, wasn't it, Scotty?
Exactly.
This is Scotty Moore talking about this famous ES-295 guitar, the historic guitar that started rock and roll. Scotty, according to these notes, it says in July of 1954, with Elvis and Bill Black in Memphis at Sun, you hit the guitar licks on this guitar that jump-started what is now known as rock and roll music. You recorded That's All Right, Little Mama, as I know, in Blue Moon of Kentucky for Sam at Sun Records. Can you want to talk about that?
Well, I don't have a bodyguard. I caused all that problem. So
But that actually wasn't the first recording you made it, son, because according to my notes, you cut something called My Kind of Carrying On. Was that for the Bud and the Starlight Wranglers?
That was, yeah. See, I had, again, when I came out of the Navy and started playing around Memphis, nobody, there wasn't any full bands. And you'd have some of the darndest combinations you'd ever could even dream up. I'd go to some club and ask them, have you got a band coming this weekend? I said, no. I said, would you like to have one? I said, I'll be fine. So I'd go home, start calling different people, ones I knew, and find out who wasn't working and hire them for that weekend.
Just put together a band. What would you call them?
It didn't have a name.
Didn't have a name?
Just, we were going to play at a place and have a band.
Did you have a drummer?
No, never used drums.
Because you didn't use drums back in those days, did you, Scott?
So I did this for a couple of months, and I said, this is just not getting it. And in all this process, I met a lot of the different musicians around town, and that's when I started the Starlight Wranglers.
You started the Starlight Wranglers?
I was the manager.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
And you were playing at a club out on off Poplar Street, way out there.
Called the Bon Air Club.
Bon Air.
Right.
And that was where you had Elvis to come out and sit in.
Yeah.
And then I understand you once told me, maybe I'm wrong on this, or my memory's a little fuzzy too, that the musicians in the group were a little, not jealous is not the right word, but they wondered, why are you having this guy sit in?
They questioned it.
Yeah.
But the only one that had any say so about it was Bill, because after we played the first night, Bill says, I don't think this is going to work. Because I was trying Elvis, we had done the audition with Elvis, see, at Sun.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't think this is going to work out because you're not taking a break. We're just planning to play straight through.
Oh, okay.
Everybody else was getting to lay out during that intermission, during that period.
And Bill wanted to take a break.
He wanted to take a break. Go around and see what everybody had on their table to drink.
And Bill was outspoken, wasn't he, Scotty?
Oh, very.
He was a funny guy, wasn't he, Bill Black?
Very much.
He doesn't get the credit that he deserves, does he, Scotty?
He
Bill
never
Black.
has. And if it hadn't been for Bill in the very early days in traveling around where the things that Elvis was singing and his action and such, well, people would just sit and just open mouthed and look at him. And Bill would start with upright bass. He would start clowning and drop the bass down and ride it and beat it and just do everything in the world and get the crowd worked up. And once he did, well, then Elvis would have had him in the palm of his hand.
Yeah, and Elvis didn't mind, did he? That was one of the good things about Elvis, Scotty. I noticed he didn't mind not stealing the show from him because it was impossible to do that, but he didn't mind if you guys pitched in because he was looking for help on stage.
He's a true entertainer. He knew we were there that all of us was there to entertain the people.
And what you guys were doing, Bill riding the bass and you hitting the licks, that actually helped him.
Exactly.
And so he was not envious at all of what was going on stage because he needed all the help he could get.
That's in the very beginning, for sure.
Because, Scotty, you know, Elvis did it opposite, really. Most guys get a little three-piece band and they go work this club and that club and they'll work the PTA meetings and they'll work this home and that home for free to get the experience, and then they got a little group together and they go in and try to audition at a record company. But Elvis did it the other way around. He didn't have a band, did he, when he came to your house that time?
Nothing.
Did you think that was unusual?
Well, I've thought about that a lot. His feeling, the way he felt music, and doing even gospel music, he felt it in a little bit different way than the norm. And being a little bit out of the norm, nobody wanted to hire him to play or come out and sing, even in clubs.
Yeah.
And I think he was suppressed in that way. But of course, once he managed to get recognized a little bit, well, of course, we all know what happened.
Exactly.
It just blew.
Thank goodness he didn't conform and try to sound like somebody. Because when he walked into Marion Kaiska that day, she said, "Who do you sound like?" He said, "I don't sound like anybody."
Well, he didn't. That's true.
And Elvis has discussed that, Scotty, and I'd like your comment on it. He always said that rock and roll was a combination of three things: gospel, rhythm and blues, and country.
Absolutely.
And he said when it came out, it just came out of his mouth, rock and roll.
Well, Alan Freed, you know, was the one that came up with the term.
Yeah.
Rock and roll, and the group had been called with Elvis Presley, the Hillbilly Cat. Gosh, what were some of the names? You know,
The Atomic Singer.
Yeah.
He had about 20 nicknames: the Hillbilly Cat, the Hip Cat, but Rockabilly King or something. You guys actually coined that phrase, didn't you? Or it was coined from what you were doing, Rockabilly.
Well, we didn't. The promoters and such they'd come up with some of the weirdest names.
Because rockabilly wasn't in the dictionary at that time, and there wasn't a word for that. So when you guys would go out, Scotty, Elvis would dress different. You guys, you wouldn't dress like cowboys.
No.
And Elvis was dressing different. Wasn't that a drastic change at that time?
Yeah, it was very drastic. Now, the band that I had, the Starlight Wranglers, we did all dress, the
Like
band
cowboy,
dressed,
Western
dressed in
entertainers?
cowboy, Western attire.
Yeah, Western.
Doug Poindexter, who was the singer for that group, didn't. He was just normal dress. But the rest of the band dressed in the Western attire.
I wonder why he wouldn't dress like a Western outfit. Because that's what you were, a Western swing man.
Well, I guess he was a Hank Williams fan more than anything else at that time, and I never thought about it in that sense.
Scotty, Keith Richards of the Rolling Stones is quoted as saying, all the singers wanted to be Elvis, but all the guitar players wanted to be Scotty Moore.
He's trying to figure out what I was doing. That's what it was.
But you know Keith real well.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a nice guy, isn't he?
Very, very nice.
And Scotty, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with the Rolling Stones, as I recall.
I believe they think so, yes.
But you were the first sideman elected to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That had to be quite an honor.
It is an honor, and that was the first, I think that was the first group that went in as sidemen. There was, I can't think of who all went in at the same time.
Okay, Scotty, how long has it been since you, Scotty Moore, has touched or seen this guitar to your left there that you used over 50 years ago?
Lord, I don't know.
You don't know?
Probably when I traded it in on that L5.
So that's been 50 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, I noticed there's an autograph over there that says, this guitar used on Elvis's recordings, and it's got your signature on there.
This is the only one that I ever signed that way, because I knew the background on it. And
Okay, now, Scotty, how long has it been since you played guitar? 50 years?
played this one?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That was everyone I traded in. I guess that was been.
Well, Scotty, that's what I always wondered was, when you guys really start happening with Elvis, did Gibson get in touch with you and give Elvis that Gibson guitar? How did that work?
Let's see, how did that happen?
Because Elvis, what was he playing? A little old cheap guitar when he came to your house that day?
He was playing a Martin.
Martin.
No, it wasn't cheap by any means. Martins made fine rhythm guitars. Clarence Habinger was the head honcho at Gibson during that time in Chicago.
Okay.
And I can't remember exactly how I got in touch. It might have been Tiny Timbrell in Los Angeles, who was a Gibson rep out there. And he had worked on a few of our sessions. And he had put either Clarence in touch with me or me in touch with him, one way or the other. We had gotten together and worked out a promotion deal.
Did you talk to Elvis about that? Or Colonel Parker?
Yeah, right. You didn't think Elvis was going to get out there and promote Gibson, did you? if Parker had anything to do with it. But and man, in doing the deal with Havinger, I got the guitar for Elvis because they knew that.
With his name on the neck? Was that the first? The first Gibson didn't have his name?
Just a straight, didn't have
his name on the neck.
And
did he like it when you got it for him?
Oh yeah.
Did he immediately start playing it?
Best I remember, he did.
Well, as I recall, Scotty, I could be wrong, but Elvis was the first major entertainer to have his name on the neck of a guitar.
Well, I hadn't. Maybe I didn't know. I hadn't even thought.
I never saw anybody else with a name on a guitar. Did you?
No, not during that period. But now he had to get the one guitar for a while, and I don't know. Gosh, man, you're really racking my brain. What little brain I got left. I sent that guitar back to Gibson to be refinished. You know how he stroked one.
Yeah, yeah. Break the strings and everything.
Break strings and everything. And I sent that guitar back to Gibson to be refinished and to have his name put on it.
It was your idea to put the name on it, neck?
Right.
How'd you come up with that?
I don't know. That's what it is, I guess.
Historic statement. You're the first guy to suggest a name on the neck of a guitar.
But then in knowing all of this, somehow they was going to send that. We were doing a session in Nashville, and they were going to send. I had called them and asked about it, and they said, "Okay, it's finished. We're going to send it to Chet Atkins in care of Chet Atkins in Nashville." So it would be there in Nashville when we got up there to do the session. And somehow, which I have never found out, something screwed up somewhere along the line, and they made another guitar and sent it to Memphis.
With his name on the neck?
His name on it. There ended up being two guitars.
With his name on the neck?
With his name on it.
Whatever happened to the other one?
Still there, somewhere.
Graceland has both of them?
As far as I know.
Okay, so then when Elvis quit playing, he quit playing the Martin then and went to the Gibson.
Right. And then later on, Charles Underwood made the case to go around it, so
leather
that he wouldn't
case with his
scratch it
name
up.
on it.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that. In fact, on the first album cover, I think the first album cover, Elvis has got his head thrown back with his mouth open. He's strumming that guitar, and it's got that case of Charlie Underwood, that leather thing.
He didn't strum one. He beat the fire out of it.
How good a guitar player was Elvis, Scotty?
When he really settled down and wanted to play, he was fair.
Yeah.
He didn't. He wanted to be able to play a little bit of every instrument.
How did it come about on one night with you he played lead guitar?
I don't remember why. He felt it. And
Did he just say, "Scotty, let me borrow your guitar"? How did that happen?
on the show,
No, when you first recorded it.
he just felt it and he did it. I felt he did it.
And you didn't care?
No, it didn't bother me.
You still got paid.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, but that's a private joke, ladies and gentlemen. We always said that me and Scotty and DJ, hey, did you get your check?
How much that cost?
And we'd run around, hey, I got my check. Did you get yours? And of course, DJ be running around like crazy looking for his check.
Yeah.
But getting back to this guitar, Scotty, it's a very historic guitar. Once again, it's a Gibson ES-295, 1950 style guitar.
Right.
Scotty, just for posterity's sake, since this show is going into the archives in Memphis, would you play that lick on That's All Right, Little Mama, please?
Well, if it's in tune.
Okay.
You may have to tune it first.
All right, well, that's okay. We're not live here. We can tune it up, and they can edit it. You know how they can edit anything these days.
Now I know. Is that coming through?
Yeah.
Now what do you want me to do?
That's all right, little mama.
I'll just play the part of it because I don't have any. The boys back there, ready?
Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sound familiar?
Sounds very, very familiar. The birth of rock and
As much as I
roll.
do with these tender fingers.
Scotty Moore on the Gibson ES-295. Now, Gibson, you're really tight with Gibson guitar, aren't you, Scotty? Henry and all those people?
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you had to be the most historic, you and Les Paul, I guess, early on were the two most historic guys that played the Gibson.
Oh, when you talk about Les Paul, he is the father of all the guitars in my
Did you ever meet
estimation.
Les Paul, Scott?
Yes, very much, a very close friend and such a fine gentleman.
Didn't he came up with some kind of technology on the Gibson, that echo thing, or what was that, Scotty?
Well, the first thing he came up with was the called the log. He built the guitar just on just a piece of wood. He didn't have all the body.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean it was a solid piece of wood with strings on it.
Yeah.
And then he developed the pickups to go on it, and the people couldn't. They said, "There's no way you can sell it." So he went back and designed a body to go around it.
Who designed the body?
Les did.
Wow.
And they put the body around this solid piece of wood
Is that right?
with pickups on it,
Yeah.
and it sold. And everybody knows what Gibson is doing now with Les Paul guitars.
Yeah. Was Mary Ford with him at the time?
You know, I don't remember. I think so, maybe in the very beginning.
Didn't they have a big Valle con Dios? That was one of their big records.
Yeah, she had to be with him back then. Yeah.
The world is waiting for the sunrise.
World's waiting for sunrise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scotty, you know, I've asked you a lot of questions here, and there's got to be some stuff that you probably want to talk about that I haven't asked you about that ES-295 guitar. Is there anything? Would you like to have it back?
No, because I'm not really playing anymore.
But Scotty, how does it feel holding that guitar that you held 50 years ago?
Oh, it feels natural. Number one, go back again and not putting Fender down, because Fender has come a long way, and they do make good guitars. For me, if I'm sitting down, a Fender is still fine. But for standing up and playing like we had to do, I had needed the body to hold on to. I just never could handle the other kind. And
Scotty, this guitar that you're holding, this Gibson, has that been refinished since you let it go, or is that just the way it looked?
no, it hadn't been refinished because see how the
Where it's cracks?
cracked from
The paint, yeah.
from the weather, and was probably stored badly at some point of time too. Heat and cold would do that.
Yeah. That is a very historic guitar, though, Scotty.
That's the same pickup, because I remember that.
You do?
Yeah, I mean not pick up the bridge.
Uh-huh.
That is a what kind of bridge is that? It was his presetter where you could adjust each string. So as your strings got dead, you could screw it up or back, whatever, and tune it.
What do you mean you got dead?
The wire would go dead, lose
Wasn't
its
picking up?
it'd lose its oomph.
Yeah, okay. It just was worn out.
You could readjust it to where it would
Oh, really?
give it some oomph.
Well, when you let Elvis play, did Elvis ever play that guitar, Scotty? Did you recall? Did he ever pick it up and play it?
Don't think so. I don't think he ever did.
Well, you would have been a little nervous if he did.
Oh, he could have. He could have played it at the studio, where we're just sitting around or something. Like
Yeah.
It's possible.
Were you nervous when he was playing it? That he may break
No.
the string or something?
Come think of it, I probably never let him. If he had to give me that guitar, you
That's
break the
another
string.
thing, Scotty, was when Elvis would break those strings, he was playing a rhythm, a Gibson rhythm, right?
Right.
When he would break those strings, who would restring the guitar, and what would he use in the meantime?
He'd just keep beating it.
Just
He'd
keep beating it?
Keep playing it. 'Cause
So
the
you wouldn't do it
the
until
rhythm
after the show?
Rhythm would be there still if he only had one string left.
He'd keep beating it.
Right. And Bill, now after we added, that's one of the reasons that when DJ came along, he joined us because there was somebody back there keeping time. The band was getting so big, you couldn't hear him playing.
Yeah.
All right, so DJ could keep the time going back there with the drum, and if Elvis broke a string, sometimes he would set the guitar down, and sometimes he'd just keep playing, just depend on the mood, you know.
Yeah. Well, he sold a lot of guitars, didn't he, Scotty?
Oh, he sold a bunch of them.
Did Gibson ever cut a deal with him, or how did that work?
Never.
They never cut a deal. But he always played Gibson. From the time you got him the one,
Right.
that he always played the Gibson. Did he ever say, Scotty, you think maybe we ought to try another guitar? Did Colonel Parker say, why don't we work a deal here or something?
Never mentioned it.
Never mentioned it.
I know that he did have some guitars at home that he'd gotten. Well, he bought some while he was overseas, while he was in the Army and such, but I don't know what kind they were or anything.
I know he had a Martin, because you said he had an affection for Martin early on.
Yeah, so they were. Martin made one of the best rhythm guitars going right in those early days, for sure.
Scotty, do you remember, I was traveling with Elvis at the time, and we're in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And it's about 1957 on tour. And that was that first big tour where Elvis wore the gold suit. We played all the big cities, Philadelphia, Chicago, and St. Louis. And anyway, what I'm alluding to is we're in Philadelphia, and this guy throws an egg at Elvis. This college kid throws egg and hits you right on the strings on Don't Be Cruel.
Right.
And Elvis looked back, and you looked down. Where in the heck did this come from?
Right.
We got you a towel out there, and you cleaned it off, and y'all just laughed about it. The cops grabbed this kid, took him downtown. Elvis asked him not to kick him out of college or what have you. But the point of the question is, was that the first time anybody ever hit you guys with an egg or anything on stage?
It's the only one I ever remember, right.
Yeah.
I do remember that because when the guy threw it, he hit me right, and I was doing the intro on Don't Be Cruel.
Right.
And it was like, don't, plump.
And we had to stop the show for a minute and get you a towel to wipe. But you had to be a little upset. Here, you got to throw an egg at this beautiful Gibson guitar.
Well, I was more upset about the interruption of the show and having to clean it up more than anything else. I mean, the show was supposed to go on, that type of thing.
Yeah. Did you have a backup? I forgot, Scott. Did you have a backup Gibson in those days?
No.
You just had one guitar?
One guitar.
Wonder why Gibson didn't give you a backup.
Good idea. Never thought about that.
And you said Elvis had two Gibsons. One went to Nashville, one came to Memphis, and Graceland ended up with both of them. And I guess they're still there at Graceland.
Because the number, what makes me remember that is the numbers. The girl that was secretary for me at the time had sent them, and the numbers had gotten reversed some way or another on the two. The one they got back had a number, but it was 2 digits off or something from the one that I had sent, and I went for many, many years, and in fact, not just too long ago is when I found out there was another guitar.
Yeah. Well, Scotty, interesting question here. Did any other guitar company try to get in touch with you, knowing that you were sort of kind of the band leader, so to speak, or the road manager early on in those days? I mean, the manager in those days. Did they ever approach you with, Scotty, would you, for X number of dollars, switch over to another guitar?
No.
Nobody approached you on that. And Fender, even though you had played the Fender early on, they wasn't aware of that, were they?
I guess not, or they never mentioned it to anybody.
You had a great line recently. In Nashville, as I recall, they founded a sideman's museum somewhere up there in Nashville, out there on the edge of Nashville.
Chambers music.
Chambers music.
I believe that's the one the only one I can think about.
Well, it's out there near where Opryland used to be. And they got a display of you and Bobby Wood and Reggie Young and James Burton.
Oh, this is a different one. I don't know about that one.
Yeah, well, they said that the line that you had was, you went out there and James Burton had his display and you had yours and everybody else had theirs.
That's Chambers.
Was that Chambers?
Chambers.
And what I'm alluding to, again, is James Burton, who was Elvis's next guitar player, lead guitar player after you,
Right.
he said, Scotty, what do you think of my display?
Right.
And you said, there's only one thing wrong with it.
That's correct.
And James Burton said, what's that, Scotty? And you said, it's not a Gibson.
That's right.
Oh, wow. Gibson, they got to love you, Scotty.
Oh, I hope they do. I love
Yeah.
them. They've always been a good company. They made fine product, and people I've talked to over the years have always been happy with their stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Scotty, would it be an imposition if I asked you once again to pick up that guitar and play a little bit of, would it be Mystery Train or Good Rockin' Tonight or something?
Well, I don't know if I can.
The reason I say that, Scotty, do you remember this? You and me and Dewey Phillips used to get together after Dewey. You'd come up and hang with us at the radio show. Then after we got off the air, we'd go over to your house or Dewey's house, and we'd make you get out. We'd ask you to get out your guitar, and you'd play some stuff for us late at night. What is that?
A chord. A big E.
Big E? This train I ride, 16 coaches long.
Enough?
Yeah, that's plenty. Scotty, when did you guys realize when you were on the road with Elvis, you had the first 5 Sun records, then RCA buys Elvis's contract from Sam Phillips, gives him $40,000, Sam keeps $35,000, Elvis gets $5,000 as some kind of reimbursement for royalties or something to that effect. And you guys go to Nashville. Now, Elvis has told me, and maybe you can add on to this or you can correct it or whatever, but he said that Sam Phillips told him, he said, Elvis, the best advice I can give you is don't let them change your style when you get over there. Elvis said he's in the studio, he's a little bit upset already that the Jordanaires are not there. It's only Gordon Stoker, and he wanted the Jordanaires, and the Spear Brothers came in, or the family came in with Gordon. Mm-hmm. And Chet Atkins, who's Mr. Guitar, probably the foremost guitar player of that day of our style of music,
Right.
he walks over to you and he's just talking to you and maybe giving you a few little pointers or something. I don't know, because I wasn't there. But Elvis walks over to Chet and says something to the effect, this is not verbatim, but it's close. Mr. Atkins, we respect you and we love you and we appreciate you, but I wish you wouldn't tell my guitar player how to play, because we got our own style. Did that ever happen?
It's possible. I do not remember it verbatim, but it's possible.
Well, how did you feel when Chet Atkins, Mr. Guitar, came over to you and was...
Well, Chet could have told me to go jump in the river, and I'd have said, "Thank you, Mr. Atkins." You know, I mean, Chet was such a great guitar player.
Did he play a Gibson?
But he was also. They have to remember that he was also in charge of Nashville RCA Records at the time too.
Yeah.
They say they had brought Steve Scholes down from New York because they had just laid out all this money for this new kid on the block.
Yeah.
And Steve's neck was on the line, boy. I mean, big time.
It was. But Scotty, on those early sessions at RCA, like Heartbreak Hotel and Too Much and those things, Elvis and you guys actually produced them yourself because they didn't know what your music was about. Is that correct?
That's correct. And that's the one thing that I'm really proud of, and I still think that's the way to do it. Because you had the singer, which was Elvis, and he knew what he felt, and he's never said one word to any of us, Bill, DJ, or myself, don't play that or play something. He let us all do our thing, what we interpreted the song and what we thought fitted, and that's the way we cut sessions.
And that was one of your secrets, really.
I always thought so.
Because he never told Scotty play this lick or Bill play that lick or whatever.
The only thing he would ever say, maybe if we were doing something a little, can we speed that up a little bit, or can we slow it down a little bit, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
But as far as notes or anything like that, he wouldn't.
Well, Scotty, when it really started happening then, and things started happening like crazy. And Sam got you guys on the Grand Ole Opry. Now, you've told a great story about that, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but tell us about what happened at the Grand Ole Opry that time.
The thing that I remember is that when we went on, we only did the one song, Blue Moon of Kentucky. And at that time, the Opry, they had all guitar players, electric guitars, had one place to plug in. It was sitting on a mic stand with a box out there. And Chet had just did a commercial. I don't remember what the commercial was now, but they had just, with Hank Snow maybe. And he had just finished, and when he unplugged, and I walked out on stage and plugged in right behind him, and when we did Blue Moon of Kentucky. Mm-hmm. And that's really the only thing I can say about the show, other than we did it the normal way. The crowd was
polite.
Was polite. They didn't roll in the aisles or anything like that,
Yeah.
because this was something new to them. And
Right.
And now the story that everybody's heard so much of about Bill Denny saying to Elvis, better keep your truck driving job or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I wasn't there.
Yeah.
But he told me about it.
Elvis told you?
Told me and Bill about it after it was said.
And it hurt his feelings, didn't it?
Oh yeah.
And you told me, Scotty, that the girls had come up in one car and you had to ride back with the girls in the car or something, and Elvis rode in another car.
But Bill's wife and my wife came up,
Yeah.
which they weren't supposed to.
But they came up anyway.
They came up anyway.
So you guys had to ride together.
So we went back with them, and Elvis rode back with Sam and Sally Wilburn.
Now, but the insinuation was, Scotty, that he not literally cried all the way back to Memphis, but he was kind of quiet in that car. Inside he was...
Probably was. I wasn't there.
Yeah. But you heard the story about he had a hurt feeling inside because of what the guy had said.
Right.
Because that was a big deal, Scotty, to be on the Grand Ole Opry at that time.
Back then it was very. I mean, it was... we were surprised just to get to do the one song.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, did Hank Snow actually forget Elvis's name when he introduced him?
I don't remember.
Don't remember that.
He might have.
Okay, that's the story. Now, from there, you guys shift on down and go to Shreveport, Louisiana. Okay, now you got a different reception down there, didn't you, Scotty?
We did two shows. The first show we did, it wasn't as subdued as it had been at the Grand Ole Opry, but it was a little laid back, you know. But then on the second show, it just erupted, because all these people had gone out and told all their friends, I guess, hey, you got to go back and see this band, see this group, this guy singing, blah blah blah. And on the second show, it just blew up, you know.
All right, now when you were doing that, was DJ behind the curtain playing drums at that time?
Right.
And did he just fall in, or did y'all ask him to play?
Well, I'd asked him to play when we got down there, because I knew from experience already that if Elvis started dancing and doing around, if the crowd got loud, we couldn't hear each other.
Yeah.
And Bill would be doing his stuff, and I'm the only one with any kind of
Electric amplification.
rhythm going on. And we asked DJ if he would play with us, and he said, "Oh, I sure will."
He was just a staff drummer, wasn't he?
Staff drummer.
Well, you know, all the acts on the hayride at that time were country, and I
That's
thought
the reason they had him behind the curtain.
that's why they had him behind the curtain, because it wasn't cool at that time to have a drummer.
No.
But you guys stepped in and used that drummer to a great effect.
Right.
And then from that, as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong again, when you went on the road, you or somebody asked DJ if he wanted to go with you guys or something.
Yeah, gosh, now I can't remember the first thing that he played with us, but I do know, because the money was very, very scarce. I mean, whew, was it ever at those times. So I do remember telling DJ that if we got booked anywhere in the Shreveport area, that we would like for him to play with us, like over in East Texas or whatever, or down in Louisiana, whatever. But we did a lot of things well, just the three of us also back in the other direction.
Yeah. And what you were talking about a moment ago, Scotty, is rather interesting in that there was no stage monitors, no tremendously big speakers, no amplification on Bill's bass.
Right.
And DJ was just playing the heck out of the drums, and he wasn't mic'd on the drums, was he?
But
Well, how the heck did you guys hear? DJ has a funny line. DJ Fontana, your drummer, says, "We're probably the only band directed by a rear end of a singer."
That's mine.
That's your line?
That was my line.
He stole your line. All right.
He better not be using that.
He's using it, son.
Oh, I knew it. That rat.
But that's a great line.
I
You
said
had to watch Elvis's backside, huh?
Yep, I could just, I didn't say backside, but you know what I said.
Yeah, I know. Well, Scotty, Elvis didn't have a repertoire of songs to sing at that time. Was that when he started borrowing from Fats Domino and Clyde McPhatter and Big Joe Turner?
He kept looking for stuff that he could sing that would kind of fall in that same pattern. And Chuck Berry and 2, 3, and that's because
Little Richard?
Little Richard, and R&B music was probably the only source at the time that had anything going that was anywhere close to that style.
Now, Scotty, when you guys went up there to do those shows, they didn't know what rock and roll was about. They didn't know what Rockabilly was about.
We didn't either.
Yeah, because
They said, "What you're doing, rock and roll, so thank you very much." You know,
Yeah.
we know what it was.
did they know where to put the mics and everything?
No.
Did you have to help them with
They
it?
had a mic sitting way up in the ceiling for most things, and what you couldn't hear.
That was
anything.
it?
That was it.
Really?
Oh, you would no television in those days. You wouldn't dare be able to see it. Oh, they run you out of town if you could see the microphone. Oh Lord, how did the guy pay?
That's right, and now it was right out there.
He better be out there.
That RCA 77D, Elvis used that a lot.
That is a 44BX and 77D. Yes, sir.
And so when you did the Jimmy and Tommy and Jackie, I want to get this straight. Jackie Gleason presents Jimmy and Tommy Dorsey's summer replacement shows. Were you signed for 6 or were you just signed for 1 and they brought you back 5 more times?
The way I remember it was signed for all 6. Now I don't. There again, I wasn't privy to that part of it because Parker was handling all that naturally.
Okay, but actually, the truth be known, you were Elvis's first manager.
Right.
Now, how did that come about?
That came about right at the very beginning, right after we released. No, not even before it was released.
That's All Right, Little Mama?
That's All Right, Mama. Bill, all of us, Bill and myself and Elvis, we were in the front part of Sun Records, just chit-chatting. And I don't remember who said it, but said, "Oh, Elvis." I remember Elvis said, he said, "I don't know what to do." Said, "All these people are calling me and wanting me to do this and wanting to do that, and I don't know what to tell them and everything." And Sleepy Eyed John was one of the ones that was
The
called.
disc jockey from Memphis, yeah.
What was the station?
WHHM.
Right, WHHM.
He had a place called the Eagle's Nest out there at Clearpool.
Right, which later on we played a long engagement out there on weekends. And Sam said, told us, he said, "I'll tell you what," said Elvis, said, "Why don't you sign a contract with Scotty for a year? That way you won't be lying. Just tell everybody that you're already under contract.
Yeah.
And that'll give us all time to find somebody we like and want to work with."
And
that's,
then
that's
after
exactly how that happened.
And so for a year, you was Elvis's manager.
Actually ended up being manager and then road manager and whatever.
Well, did they drive you crazy that first year, the people calling you? Or?
Pretty much.
Because you weren't used to booking acts on the road and stuff.
No, but I learned real fast.
But then how was it then y'all got with Bob Neal, the Memphis disc jockey, to be Elvis's manager?
Well, Bob had got us on that show at the Overton Park Shell.
Slim Whitman show.
Slim, and I'm sure that I can't remember now Sam I was good friends with him, and they'd worked out the deal some way or another, I guess, and got us on that show. And that was really the first time we'd met Bob, and then he'd booked a few other things after that. And I think that's when we decided, well, he'd be a good one to book us. But we didn't know at the time he was doing to handle just the local.
Yeah.
He didn't want to travel.
Yeah.
And
He only managed Elvis for a couple of years, didn't he, Scott?
Right.
54 to 56 or something like that.
right, and then as we all know, the Colonel took over.
Yeah. Scotty, going back, putting the tape rewind for a minute here, were you guys with Elvis in Cleveland, Ohio when he did that movie short with Pat Boone?
Yeah.
What was that? What was that about? It never came out. Nobody ever saw it.
I know it. Let's see, Pat Boone, and who all was on that
Was
thing?
Bill Haley on that?
I think so. Gosh, that's a long time ago. We was up there to do a show
In Cleveland.
in Cleveland at the, what was the name of the theater?
Capitol or Theater or something like that.
Lyric or something like that.
Yeah.
And we stayed there through the next day to do the television thing, or film or whatever, movie short. And I think we did our show with them.
Was it in an auditorium or where? Oh, it was on the movie theater stage, wasn't it? Where you guys were playing.
I can't visualize that stage of how we did it. It wasn't at the show where we did the show at. I know that.
Okay.
It was somewhere else.
Oh, it was somewhere
But
else.
they had a crowd and everything.
Wonder why it never came out. Nobody's ever seen it.
Contractuals, the only thing I've ever found out.
Yeah. Now, Scotty, if I get a little personal here, you'd say, GK, I don't want to answer that. But you've never told me that in all these years, because I don't ask any hardball questions.
Well, I might lie to you then.
But Scotty Moore, legendary guitar player, the guitar that changed. You had an album called The Guitar That Changed the World. I like that. It was on Epic, as I recall.
Right.
I got a pretty good memory, don't I, Scotty?
You got a good one.
But what I'm leading up to, Scotty, was it's fuzzy in my mind, and you'll understand why, because it's so many years ago. But it seems as though you and DJ and Bill Black were supposed to receive, like, I don't know, 1% of what Elvis made, or something like that. But then when the Colonel Parker came in, that was like pushed aside. But you being such nice guys and things were happening so fast at the time, you never put your foot down. What was that all about?
Well, you basically said it. Things were going so fast, and they was going so fast that you used to say, well, something's going to happen tomorrow. It's that type. I mean, everything's going to be all right.
Was that verbal or was that in writing?
It was verbal. To go way back, after when Elvis did the first session, and Elvis lived on Alabama Street, and I took him home after we did the B-side, I guess.
Blue Moon of Kentucky.
Blue Moon, Kentucky. And we sat there was the next door to where he lived. It was a two-story house. There was the steps on Alabama to the house that used to be there that were still there, and I remember this very well. When I took him home, me and him sat out there on these steps for, an hour or whatever, just chit-chatting about everything in general. And he made the statement then. He said, said if everything starts going real good and everything, said we're just going to split everything 3 ways right down the road. And I told him, I said, no, Elvis, it won't work like that. And I said, now if we want to do this, I said, you take 50%, and then Bill and I'll take 25% each, which would make it fair.
That was more than fair, yeah.
You would be the front man, and you'll be the one singing, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the way we actually started out. And then all that Actually, when Bob Neal came in is when it got changed.
Really?
When Bob Neal came in, and they put Elvis on, put us on a salary. And this would have been, what, about a year later, I guess, something like that.
Well, what about that 1% that you guys were supposed to get off of RCA records and personal appearances and movies and everything?
I don't remember.
That never brought up again?
Never brought up again.
But you know what that would have amounted to, Scotty? Millions of dollars, that 1%.
I probably could build this building.
But you guys being such nice guys, and you all loved Elvis, because I can go on record as saying from when I was there traveling with you guys and in the later years, Scotty Moore, Bill Black, DJ Fontana never, ever uttered a negative word about Elvis Aaron Presley.
There wasn't anything that crossed my mind that would have been that bad anyway, that I would talk about anyway.
Yeah. But Scotty, Colonel Parker kind of rubbed you guys the wrong way a little bit, I thought. I know you would never say it, but I was there at Radio Recorders that day when, at the end of an Elvis session, you guys were supposed to do an instrumental as the EP Continentals.
Oh, yeah.
And that came from, Elvis was driving a Lincoln Continental at the time.
That's correct.
Either you or DJ or Bill came up with a name. I don't know, the fan clubs or somebody came up.
Elvis named it.
Elvis
He
named
got
it.
it from the car, actually.
The EP Continentals.
Right, and we'd already done a session with Elvis.
Yeah.
And had booked the Radio Recorders, had booked the studio, because when he finished his session, we was going to do one instrumental with us, which Elvis wanted to play piano on.
Yeah.
And well, you know, it had to be simple.
Yeah.
That's when all that happened. And when Colonel got wind of it, well, you squashed the whole deal.
And you know what, Scotty? You won't say it, but I'll say it. That was a big mistake on Colonel Parker's part, because later on, here comes Bill Black with the Bill Black combo with about 5 smash hits. Smokey, White Silver Sands, Don't Be Cruel, and a bunch more.
Don't you think Bill let them know about it?
Yes, sir.
You better believe it.
So actually, had Colonel seen the big picture,
Right.
he would have seen that EP Continental thing is you guys opening a show, another act on the show already built in, so to speak, because you could have opened the show as the EP Continentals and done Smokey Part 2 and White Silver Sands or whatever.
That's exactly what we was looking at.
Son of a gun, is that right?
So we could go out on stage first and play a couple of 3 numbers or whatever, if we made the record.
Yeah.
And then bring Elvis out. That's exactly.
And that
what
would have been an extra added attraction or opening act or whatever you wanted to call it, because you were already on stage doing your show. Boom, here comes Elvis. It was built in. I wonder why the Colonel didn't see that, Scotty.
Control.
Did you guys ever discuss things with the Colonel like that, or was he hard to talk to, Scotty?
I never had any reason to talk to him.
Yeah. But you never said, like...
He didn't bother us, and we didn't bother him. I left it at that from the very beginning, because I think the man was smart enough to realize that he didn't really want to I'm trying to find a word for it, to
upset you guys?
upset us, yeah, too much.
Because it would stifle your creativity with Elvis.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to make Elvis upset, because he knew that Elvis really loved you guys, because y'all started together as day one. Now, Scotty, tell the story, if you will, and it's a cute story about when Elvis made the movie Love Me Tender. I'm going to set the stage. You guys go to Hollywood, and they didn't use you. They used some kind of California hillbilly band. And tell the folks that story, why they didn't use you.
That was
Darby?
Ken Darby.
Yeah.
Ken Darby Singers.
Yeah.
He had a vocal group that he used in all the movie tracks and stuff. And no, we went out to Bungalow. A bungalow is a little house outside
on the movie set.
On a movie set.
Yeah.
And see, Elvis didn't know this either. And he didn't know what kind of picture it was going to be, although he's going to be in a movie. Knew what the title was going to be, no. So we go out there and just practically did our stage show. Because Ken Darby, the producers and all wanted to hear, Well, we don't know. We need to hear them, see what they sound like. So we went out and just did our normal thing we've been doing. And when we left, and then we found out later, they said, no, they're too, this is going to be a hillbilly band.
They said you didn't sound country
we looked
enough,
at each other like, what are we? You
Yeah,
know?
that's what you had been all your life.
Exactly.
In Memphis with those guys.
Right.
They said you didn't sound country enough, huh?
Oh, it was all put up from the very beginning, you know.
I see. But then after that, somebody must have put their foot down, because here comes Loving You, and you guys are right in there, and Jailhouse Rock and so forth and so on.
I don't know who. I'll have to give that to Elvis. I think he's the one that really said, I want him.
Yeah.
Because he had to.
But I remember in Loving You, you guys did wear them cowboy hats. And that,
I still get kidded about that. So, hey, keep that hat on your head.
Well, Scotty, another trivia footnote is that in the movie Jailhouse Rock, Elvis is doing a song called Baby I Don't Care out by the swimming pool. And I happened to be lucky enough to be there on the shoot there. I was traveling with Elvis at the time. And I want you to explain to the audience, in one scene, it shows you sitting there playing Baby You So Square I Don't Care. It cuts to a scene with a little girl watching Elvis. It cuts back to you, and you got on sunglasses, which you didn't have on before.
All right. Well, that's very simple. In the morning, we did all the close shots, which the camera's in close to the people. Mm-hmm. And then in the afternoon, we went to lunch. Then that afternoon, we went back and they did all the long shots, which the camera was back behind the swimming pool. And the sun's coming. The sun's already moved over here, right in my face.
Yeah.
So I said, this is a long shot. And they can't see me, so I put my glasses on.
Yeah.
But I didn't know they were going to cut to me in the picture. So that's where you get that.
Well, the script girl didn't catch it, did they?
She was so enthralled by watching Elvis.
Yeah, they didn't
she
catch
didn't
it.
catch it.
Okay, now, Scotty, in that movie, Mike Stoller, of the great songwriting team of Jerry Lieber and Mike Stoller, who wrote most of the soundtrack songs for that
Right.
Jailhouse Rock, which was historic. But Dudley Brooks actually played piano. Why didn't they use Dudley? Why did they use Mike Stoller?
That I don't know.
Remember Dudley?
Yeah, Dudley
the soulful
was
piano player.
Absolutely, he was.
He was really good. Had his own sound.
He had his own sound and played on so many sessions with us.
But yet they used Mike Stoller in the movie. That just needed a piano player, and he happened. He wrote the song, and maybe he knew it or something, huh?
Could be.
Yeah.
Maybe Dudley might have been booked on something else at the time. I don't. It's been too long. I don't remember.
Okay, that could have happened. Okay, Scotty, now another interesting thought is that Mike Stoller and Jerry Lieber were on the staff of RCA, and they were producing some stuff or writing for some RCA artists, and they had written some of the songs, especially for Jailhouse Rock. Mm-hmm. And then on that session, Elvis asked them, or maybe it was the Christmas album session, he said, would you guys write me a ballad? You're going to like this question because you have told me privately this is one of your favorite Elvis songs. So that night at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, they come up with a demo of a song called Don't. The next day, Elvis said, I love this song. I'm cutting this thing tomorrow. You guys go to the studio, start working on Don't. Stoller and Lieber have access to the studio because they're under contract to RCA, some kind of arranger A&R contract. Right. I don't know what it was. Colonel Parker comes in, won't know how that song got to Elvis without going through the proper channels. Mm-hmm. Colonel Parker goes ballistic on Jerry and Mike and really hurts their feelings and kind of runs them off, which was a big mistake on Colonel Parker's part because they were two, along with Otis Blackwell and several other guys, hottest songwriters going at that time. Can you talk about that?
Well, the things that I know about, I know that I wasn't privy to some of the background things that were happening. Other than I knew that they had wrote the song for him and he loved it and was going to do it the next day. And when Parker found out where the song came from, whatever, and he told him, that's when he blew up. It gets back to control again.
But Scotty, that was a major mistake on Colonel Parker's part.
Oh, absolutely.
Because those guys were so red hot as songwriters. They wrote Loving You, they wrote Jailhouse Rock, they wrote Baby I Don't Care, or You So Square I Don't Care. The list goes on and on of stuff they wrote, Treat Me Nice.
Well, you have to realize that Parker was not a music guy.
He had no artistic talent
None
whatsoever.
whatsoever. He was a manager.
Yeah.
Now, the story about the closest he ever got to music was the chickens he had dancing
The dancing
in
chickens
Florida.
on the hot plate.
Right.
Well,
Eddie Arnold would probably tell you that.
did Elvis know that wonder why Elvis didn't put his foot down on that, knowing, hey, Colonel, cool it. These guys are hot songwriters.
Don't know.
Don't know.
Don't know.
Because after that, after King Creole, they wrote a lot of stuff for that. They kind of faded into the background and went and got the Coasters and wrote Searchin', Charlie Brown,
Right.
and all those about 10 straight hits.
I know it. No, some of that stuff I just don't know.
Okay, another question, Scotty. Why didn't you and Bill and Elvis ever write a song together or submit a song for a session?
Well, number one, I never was a songwriter to begin with.
Yeah, but when you play the music, you're part of the song.
Well, that's different. I mean, I'd play it something. If you wrote something, I could play it, but I couldn't write it myself.
So y'all never submitted a song?
Mm-mm.
Of course.
I did submit one to him one time, which he did record, but it was when I had Fernwood Records here in town.
What song was that? A Stan Kessler song?
No, it was a song at
Not a Thomas Wayne
Gotta Be
song.
Waiting.
I'll Be Waiting. Who wrote that?
Gotta Be Waiting. You gotta be waiting.
Thomas Wayne wrote it?
Yeah.
Okay, now that's another great a question or thought here. A lot of people don't know that you, Scotty Moore, produced a smash hit called Tragedy on Thomas Wayne Perkins.
Had Thomas was the younger brother of Luther Perkins, who was the lead guitar player for Johnny Cash.
Right.
And he lived over on the next street from me and was my paper boy.
Thomas Wayne was your paper boy?
Thomas was my paper boy back in those early days. And he'd always come in and he sat on my coffee table and broke the glass, it was glass covered.
Yeah.
He sat on it and broke it.
Oh, no.
But he'd come down when we were there rehearsing or playing anything. And he wanted to sing. So we did that session with him. He got three girls who had been singing together in high school called the D. Leons. He ended up marrying one of them.
Oh, okay.
High was just opening up their studio, and Bill and myself was only two musicians on the session, and we went down there and at the High studio, and they had just bought a brand new mono tape machine and couldn't get the damn thing to work. and we out there were rehearsing and everything while they were working to get this machine going. And then when they finally got it going, that's when we cut Tragedy.
With just two musicians?
Two musicians. Just
You and Bill?
Me and Bill.
But you cut it at High?
Cut it at High, and then Gerald Nelson and Fred Birch took the tape up to WMPS, who had two tape machines, and transferred it to another tape machine and added the slapback echo.
Is that how that came about?
That's how it came about.
Because see, a lot of people don't know that one of Sam's secrets was that slapback echo. We used to use it in the radio in the old days to get echo in the recording because we didn't have an echo chamber.
Right.
All it is you press play and record at the same time, open the pot a little, and you get that echo.
Right.
But nobody in New York was wise enough to figure that out, were they?
Figured it out.
Because Jerry Wexler of Atlantic Records one time, it was Dewey Phillips, Sam Phillips, and yours truly at the Chisco Hotel. Jerry Wexler from Atlantic Records rented a room there because our studios were in the Chisco Hotel at WHBQ. And Jerry Wexler asked Sam Phillips point blank, Sam, how do you get that funky sound? And Sam said, Jerry, I ain't gonna tell you.
That's Sam.
But it was slapback echo, Scotty.
Yeah, the slapback, I don't think I'm divulging any secrets or anything, but part of the secret back then was that that was before baffles and isolation chambers and rooms and whatever. And Sun Records was a live cavern, and he had concave on the ceiling that he'd done that, trying to dampen the sound a little bit. But Sam didn't like drums for that reason.
Okay.
He wouldn't tell you that, but that's the truth, because they were hard to control.
Because there wasn't any baffles around them.
Baffles around them, and they would bleed into other microphones.
Is that right?
That's right. Now, if you remember from we cut That's All Right, I don't know how many people have asked me, said, who was the drummer? I said, there was no drummer.
No.
Well, how did you get that sound? I said, Bill always tuned his bass string down on the upright bass to where it just flopped. And he would pull the tone, the note, like boom, and then hit with the palm of the back of his hand on that string that's flopping against the neck, and you hear that metallic sound. And
that's how it
you
happened.
think it's a drum back there keeping the beat.
Well, there was a couple of drummers around, hanging around Sun at that time. And I think, didn't you guys experiment with them in the studio? But Johnny Bonero or somebody?
Bonero, and there's another one too.
Jimmy Lott.
Jimmy Lott.
But Sam didn't use them.
Didn't use them. But if you can go back and listen to those early records, they really sound funky.
Yeah.
You know.
But Scotty, you were the guy, you probably don't remember this. I don't know if you got credit for it or not, but when Elvis got out of the Army in 1960, Elvis did 2 shows for charity at the old Ellis Auditorium. Mm-hmm. Now, he had DJ Fontana, but you brought in another drummer for some reason, and you had 2 drummers on stage.
I did?
And yes, you did, and that was the first time that ever happened. How did that come about?
I don't remember. Let me think on that one. Would that have been...
Bonero or Lott or somebody?
No, it wasn't them. It could have been... who?
J.M. Van Eaton?
No.
No. But was it a drummer with the band? There was an orchestra on that show. Did you use that drummer?
I'm trying to think who was working at Stax as an engineer.
Chips Moment?
No.
Was he a drummer?
He was a drummer. Capone.
Ronnie Capone.
Ronnie Capone.
I think it was Ronnie Capone.
That's who it was.
That's who it was. How did you think to use 2 drummers?
Is that one that we did both rooms?
Yeah.
That might have been the reason.
Oh, okay. Well, it was your idea to use 2 drummers then?
Yes.
Did you discuss that with Elvis, or how did it come about?
I'm sure I did. God, that's been so long, I can't remember. I'm trying to remember.
You were the first group in the history of the music to use 2 drummers on stage at one time.
They were turning from one audience to the other.
Yeah, you were turning around.
And you couldn't turn the drum.
Elvis would sing sideways.
The drummer couldn't turn around.
Okay.
And Bill could turn, I could turn standing up. Elvis could turn.
Uh-huh.
I mean, we would follow him. If he was singing to this group, we'd be following,
Yeah.
you know. But the drummer had to stay in the one, and I've got one place where it doesn't show 2 drummers, it just shows DJ, but he's kind of sitting over on the side, angled out.
See, because the name of that band was the Kingsmen, remember? That was the name of that orchestra.
Golly, boy, what a memory. Boy, gee.
I don't know how that popped into my head, Scotty.
Let's change seats. Let me talk to you for a while.
But it kind of just popped in. Well, I was very attentive. I was absorbing it. I was like a sponge, man. Everything you guys were doing, I was just absorbing it, and I lived it, so I didn't have to go back and study it. You know what I'm saying? But I thought that was very innovative. And the next time I ever saw that was James Brown. He used 2 drummers on stage.
Now, he'd use them for power.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, now, Scotty.
If we'd had any sense, we'd been using them for power all along, tell you the truth.
Yeah, or you couldn't afford 2 drummers also, though, could you?
No. Well, we could have later on, but later on with DJ, and that's when Bill had to drop off the upright bass and went to electric bass.
Yeah, the Fender bass.
So he could hear it a little better.
Yeah.
And if we had DJ, the crowds got so big that, and I was just going by, but Elvis was playing. DJ had to watch exactly. He played to his body movements.
Yeah.
That's the way it worked. And just luckily we never would get lost. And if we'd had two drummers, we wouldn't have, because the one drummer could have kept the beat straight on, right?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
But we didn't do it. Didn't think
That's
about it.
interesting. Scotty, I'm gonna put the tape machine on fast forward now.
Okay.
Elvis goes in the Army, comes out of the Army. You're established in Nashville as a producer, studio type guy, tape duplicator, whatever it was going on at the time. I know for a while you did some stuff with, forget that guy that Sam had over there. Sam had a studio in Nashville at one time, and a
Right.
real nice guy was the producer. He became pretty well known. He retired.
Billy Sherrill?
Yeah, Billy Sherrill. Okay, and didn't he do the guitar that changed the world or something?
Yeah. Billy was engineer for Sam there for a while, and well, actually, Billy had gone in with what's the guy from?
Shelby Singleton?
No,
Jerry Kennedy?
no, from Florence.
Oh, Hall? No, Rick Hall.
No,
No.
I can't think of his name. But they had actually
Buddy
opened.
Killen?
No, they had actually opened up the studio, and then Sam bought the guy out and refurbished the whole thing, and kept Billy there as an engineer for a while. And then Al Gallico, who was out in New York
A publisher.
publishing, got Billy hooked up with Epic Records.
Okay.
His head at Epic Nashville. And so Billy left Sam and went to work
With
for Epic. And then he jumped on me as his first first whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's when we cut that album.
The guitar that changed the world.
Right.
And that was your first album.
Right.
Okay, now Scotty, I'd like to ask you this now. Elvis goes in the Army. Obviously, things come to a kind of a halt for 2 years for, Elvis's little band. DJ went with Gene Vincent for a minute, and Bill started doing the Bill Black combo, and you went to Nashville and started doing your thing over there. Okay, now Elvis comes out of the Army, and he starts using you guys on sessions, but he goes into movies, and he's not doing too many live shows. That has come to kind of a halt for a while, because Colonel thought that he can make as much money doing movies without having to travel on the road.
Right.
Okay, now what I'm leading up to is a '68 special. Elvis brought you in and put you on that stage. It was you and DJ and Alan Fortas and Charlie Hodge, I think,
Right.
on that stage. And you were sitting to Elvis's left, as I recall.
Correct.
And how did that all come about?
I mean, how did we get hired
did
on the gig? Or?
did somebody call you and say, Scotty, Elvis is going to do a TV special?
No, Elvis called.
Okay, that's what I mean. How did it all come
Yeah,
about?
he called and asked me if I'd like to do it, and I said sure. And honestly, now that I think about it in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, if we do this, maybe this is going to continue. We're going back on the road, or going back into whatever.
Was you interested in doing that?
Yeah.
Going back on the road again?
Would have
You were
been.
kind of established in
Yeah, if the
Nashville at
money's
this
right,
time.
of course.
Yeah.
Everything comes down to money. Let's face it.
Yes, sir. Show me the money, huh?
Right.
But you did that thing, Scotty, that '68 special, and that came a very historic television show in Elvis's career, because it reestablished him. He really didn't need any reestablishing in our minds, but it did for the world.
Right.
And he hated the word comeback, because he said, ain't no comeback, because I ain't been nowhere.
That's
I've been
right.
doing movies, and I've been recording. But my point is, it was such a historic thing, because, Scotty, in my little mind, that was the very first unplugged jam session.
I've been told that, but I had never thought about it in that way. I was plugged in.
You were plugged in.
Yeah, I was the only one plugged in.
You were the only one, because DJ was playing a waste can, and Alan was hitting the back of a guitar, and I don't know what Charlie Hodge was
DJ
doing.
was playing a guitar case, wasn't he?
That's what it was, yeah. And I don't know what Charlie Hodge was doing. He was just strumming a guitar or something, a rhythm.
I don't know what Charlie was doing.
Huh? He had a tambourine. Well, didn't Lance Legault have the tambourine too?
Lance Legault had a tambourine. He was sitting there behind Elvis
on the mic.
Yeah.
Did you have any idea, Scotty, that little jam session was going to turn into such a great thing that it became?
Lord, no.
Yeah.
No.
But it was just something that you guys had always done with Elvis anyway, wasn't
That's
it?
what he wanted, didn't it? I mean, and I was glad that he did it because it was natural.
Yeah.
It's just like us sitting in his living room or yours or mine, just doing our thing.
It wasn't no rehearsing.
He wasn't worried about a crowd or anything.
Yeah.
He was just worried about us there on stage, and we were just having a good time.
And there was no rehearsing, was it?
No rehearsal up whatsoever.
He hated rehearsals, didn't he, Scotty?
Yeah. Right.
He didn't like to rehearse, did he? He liked the spontaneity of stuff. And that's why that jam session came off so good on that 68 special.
And I think he would have been a great movie star if he'd been left alone and let him do himself what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Without putting all these funky movies on him and everything.
Yeah. He was such a nice guy, though, Scotty. He wouldn't put his foot down, would
I know. That was his
I
fault.
wonder why.
I don't know. I never could figure out. Well, he was. Once he gave you his word on something, he would usually stick
He
up
stuck
to
to
it.
it,
He'd
yeah.
stick to it.
Because, you know, Scotty, we used to talk to the Colonel about halfway through that movie career, and we'd say, Colonel, why don't you get better scripts, better songs? Because the songs halfway through the movie career became not as good as songs as they were early movie career songs. And Colonel was saying things, and on one hand it made sense, the other hand it didn't, Scotty. On one hand, well, he said, George,
It'll buy just as many this way if you can give it that way.
and if we cause a problem and the movie flops, they gonna blame it on us. And if we gotta read the script, that's another $1 million. And there's guys walking Hollywood Boulevard with Oscars in their hand, can't get arrested, but my boy, called Elvis my boy, he's making millions of dollars. He's getting $1 million up front, 50% of the picture. Brando's not getting it. John Wayne is not getting it. Marilyn Monroe's not getting it. Elizabeth Taylor's not getting it. But my boy, Elvis, is getting it. We said, Colonel, what about the artistic side? To heck with the artistic side. But Scotty, down the road, if he'd gotten more movies like King Creole, or movies like that Dean Martin was doing, those movies at that time, or Steve McQueen movies, he could have handled those roles, couldn't he, Scotty?
Yeah, oh, sure. Even Loving You was kind of a thing on the beginning and everything.
Loosely based on
But
what
still, it
happening.
was a good movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just never could figure it out. Now, you guys hanging around him, you could get away with saying things that you wanted to the Colonel,
Yeah.
where we couldn't.
I know it. I know it.
You know?
And we got in discussions with the Colonel, and he would browbeat us and back us down by saying, well, how many movies have you produced?
Yeah.
How many gold records do you have, George?
Oh, yeah.
And then you're backed into a corner, and it's hard to come back at him. But by the same token, Scotty, we all know that Elvis, once again, could have been a great actor had he been given the right scripts, the right supporting cast, and maybe not so many
Number one,
songs.
because he could take direction very good.
Yeah.
And I mean, he had a natural ability on a script after he read it. He would have a natural thing. But then if there was something in that script that maybe he didn't do just right, the director, if he was a good one, could give him direction that he would do it right.
Yeah. Like Michael Curtiz, great director, did King Creole. He had Walter Matthau in there, Carolyn Jones, Dean Jagger, Vicky Morrow. He had some great supporting cast and some good songs in there. Scotty, that's another thought. When you guys did the soundtrack for King Creole, and it had that Dixieland thing in there, what did y'all think about that?
No, I just thought it fit the overall thing.
So it didn't bother
I
you?
hadn't seen the script. I didn't know the whole layout of the movie at the time when we cut it. Other than they know that Dixieland thing was going to be in it.
Yeah.
But it was okay.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Okay. Scotty, do you remember the time, Vancouver, Canada, big football stadium?
Yeah.
Elvis is wearing the gold suit. You guys, about 80,000 people there.
Yeah.
You guys go out to do the show. Heartbreak Hotel, first song, first word is well. Here comes all these people running out of the stands. Colonel has to come out and get him back in the stands. Colonel says, Elvis, don't tease this audience because this is a wild audience here. You're right in the middle of a football field, at the edge of a football field. It was shaped like a horseshoe. And then Elvis gets on stage, sings again. They come rushing out. Finally, they decide to let the people stay on the field. The show ends. Elvis wouldn't do an encore because that was his mode of operation to get away. People thought he was going to come back. You and me and Bill and DJ jumped in that limousine right behind the stage. Next thing we know, the stage is torn, demolished, like a bomb is hitting it. They're grabbing the stuff for souvenirs. They surround the car. They start to breaking off the antenna. They pulling the license plate off the car.
Trying to remember, I can hear you, but I can't remember what you was saying.
I'm saying, Scotty, hit that gas pedal. And I rolled the window down, and I said, they're tearing up Elvis's car. And that Canadian policeman said, oh, he's rich, he can buy himself another one. I said, Scotty, it's either us or them. Hit that gas pedal. You were driving. And Bill and DJ said, yeah, Scotty, hit that gas pedal. We barely got out of their lives, Scotty.
Yeah, I do remember that. If I remember correctly, the reason that they didn't let the people in the stands come down to begin with, because they had a game coming the next day or something. They didn't want them to mess up the field.
And they said they were going to fine everybody $100 that came on that field.
That's probably, I don't remember that, but that's probably right. And they finally let them come down if they would be still or something.
Yeah.
And then when he didn't do that encore, it was bar the Katie door.
That was a close call, wasn't it?
Yeah.
There was a lot of close calls. Kansas City, when he invited the people to come on the stage and they charged the stage and you guys had to run off. Remember that?
We had one, was it Kansas City, where we was playing at out in the middle on a wrestling ring in the circle.
Mm-hmm. In the round, so
in
to
the
speak.
round. And they had some policemen stationed around it, but they just couldn't hold them back. And we finally had to take off. And I remember this because all I had to do was, Elvis took off first. He left the stage and took off to the dressing room, or to the back. And I had just turned around and held the guitar up straight like this with the crowd.
Yeah.
And then I looked out and I could see Bill's bass and DJ's bass drum floating atop above everybody's head. Of course, we didn't know at the time, but there was some guys that was helping us get the instruments off.
Yeah.
And these was carrying them up high, and we just see them floating across.
Scotty, was that similar to the thing that happened in Florida? I don't know what city it was, Jacksonville, I think, when they tore Elvis's clothes off?
Gosh, I'm trying to think. That was just misjudgment, I think, more than anything else. He didn't think he was going to they weren't trying to hurt him. He was just trying to get to him.
Yeah.
That's when he got in the ticket booth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were some wild times in those days, weren't there, Scotty?
There was a lot of fun, and it was education. And
when you guys were traveling in one car, and y'all would start arguing, and you throw Elvis's shoes out, and then Elvis said stop the car, and they wanted to fight, and all that, and you'd have to stop the car. What was that all about?
that was Bill, I think, that threw his shoes out one time. Somewhere, I'm trying to remember where we were at. Or say it again, what'd you say?
Well, I think you guys were driving down the road, and being confined in a car so close, you start to get on each other's nerves.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
you start arguing about something.
Yeah, we'd argue with each other. It was a New York minute, just about anything. And a couple of times, we just, even after DJ was riding with us, we'd stop the car, and we'd all get out of the car, walk around the car a couple of times, and shake hands and get back in the car.
And go on to the next town.
To the next town, yeah.
Did it happen, Scotty, when you were with Elvis, would y'all play like a show, like a 8 or 9 o'clock show in one town in Texas and drive to the next city and play a 10 or 11 o'clock show? Would you play two different?
A couple of times back in the very early days that we did that. I remember a couple in Arkansas when we was doing little clubs, and there's one, I can't remember names and such, but we played at a high school auditorium one time, and then drove maybe 20, 30 miles to another, and played a club that night.
Yeah.
Later on.
So it wasn't as easy as people thought for you guys. Like you said early on, money was scarce.
Money was scarce. We were young and in good shape.
Did y'all ever get stuck in a town one time, Scotty, and couldn't get out because you didn't have any money to pay the hotel or something?
Oh, we got stuck in Shreveport in the early days when we was on the hayride.
You didn't have money to pay the hotel bill?
Oh, what'd
you do?
Tillman Franks had supposedly had a big thing for us to play, and then when we got down there and got checked in and everything, it blew up. We didn't have enough money to get back to Memphis.
What'd you do?
Pappy Covington, who was one of the promoters off the hayride, called
Sam?
No, called, I'm trying to think of his name. He's over in Gladewater.
What was his name? Yeah. Disc jockey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a disc jockey at the time. He's a, well,
Promoter.
promoter. I can't even, mine won't come to me. And we became real good friends. I can't think of the man's name, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And he'd been running this little club on Friday and Saturday nights, and we went over there and played it, and he didn't take his percentage off of it. He gave us the whole door.
And that's how you got back.
That's how we managed to get back home, yeah.
Well, Scotty, we've talked a whole lot. Is there anything I haven't covered that you want to talk about?
Oh, I'm sure there's things that we've forgotten, but we'll just do it again one of these days.
Okay.
What is that?
Scotty, as you take us out, I'm trying to rack my brain to think if there's any other questions, because it's not often that you get Scotty Moore in front of a camera to talk like this.
Stuttering anyway. Trying to think
Scotty,
of these
one
things.
quickie. How was it when you played with Paul McCartney when he did that So Right Little Mama session?
It was good. He was such a great musician himself, and there wasn't, and he had already rehearsed the song, obviously, and he probably had done it a lot of times on his own, and you knew what key he was going to do it in. He wanted to do it just like the record, and the only difference was he played electric bass instead of upright, and I think one time through was about all we did, to give the engineer time to get the balance. And we put it on tape, and then we got through, and he put that extra verse in we talked about
That's
earlier.
right, yeah.
And I had never heard, and DJ had never heard it either. And when we were listening to the thing back, and somebody said, hey, I don't hear the slapback, the thing that Billy done with the string.
Uh-huh.
And so Paul went back out and overdubbed that.
Is that how that happened? To make it sound like a slap back?
Make it sound like a
He was hitting
slapback.
on his legs?
Hitting on his legs.
Son of a gun.
Right.
Scotty Moore, anything else?
For tonight, I think we've covered it pretty good.
Would you do me a favor? Would you pick up that guitar one more time, Scotty? And I guess, I don't know what, you got 5 picks there. No, you got 6 guitar picks.
Oh, no.
Do you still use a guitar pick?
No, I play when I use finger style.
Okay. Can you play us on out then?
Uh-oh. How far?
That's as far as you want to go. Scotty, thanks so much. I love you, Scotty.
Thank you, bud.
You're a great, great guy, very historic guy, and I'm so glad that I'm your friend all these years.
Amen, brother.
Thank you, Scotty Moore. Scotty Moore, our special guest, the legendary Scotty Moore, first sideman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.